Happy Tuesday evening to y'all. Thank you for joining me here on Lace Up, where we lace up our boots to keep on walking through the joys and struggles of life together. We have a great community with Lace Up all over the nation, and some people in Canada and different places that join us, and we commit to pray for one another and just have a bit of a community. So if you come on now or even later, say hi, contact me, and let me know that you're here. I also want to let you know how to contact me. You can also you can message me here. You can also email me at kellylace@yahoo.com. And these programs, if you have someone that does not get on Facebook but might want to watch, they're posted over to YouTube at Lace Up with Kelly Lace 5425. Hey Barb, Kelly Lace, Lace Up with Kelly Lace 5425 on YouTube. Sorry for the distraction there. So I want to get right in and thank you guys. Some of you have responded so beautifully to a request I made last week. As y'all know, I don't ask for money on here, but I did put a request out for a friend who is battling cancer, and I do appreciate your prayers so much. Please pray. We need a miracle. We need God to just do what God can do. And we're just expecting great things, great report this next week on some scans. So keep Karen in your prayers, and if you feel inclined to, please go to my GoFundMe page, which goes directly to Karen and her family, as she's unable to work, of course, going through this battle, and she was the primary breadwinner. So please do that. You can find that on my page, Kelly White Lace, which of course you're on because you're here with me today. So you can go to that GoFundMe, and even $10, $5, anything helps. So please don't hesitate just because you don't have a large amount to give. Some have given large amounts and larger amounts, but even a small amount is the widow's mite, right? It's so appreciated, so appreciated. So last week we started a series on the Olivet Discourse. The Olivet Discourse is the last long teaching or prophetic teaching that Jesus did before leaving this earth. So I said last week, I need to make a correction real quick, because last week I had said it was the longest message. Well, it wasn't the longest message. It was the longest prophetic message that he made. We know that if he was down to, and knew he was down to his final days on the planet as a man, face to face with his disciples, he was going to take that time seriously. I don't think there was a whole lot of chit chat. I think that he used that time very wisely and would have been very careful of that. We know that it is named the Olivet Discourse because it took place on the Mount of Olives, which was a place that Jesus hung out at. It was, the word says, he was accustomed to going there. It was his place. He would go up into the garden and in amongst the olive trees, and that's where the glory of God had come up out of Jerusalem at one time in the Old Testament and settled there. So we know that this was where he hung out, and this is where he delivered most of this discourse. It's covered in Matthew chapter 24, Mark 13, and Luke 21. We're going to work predominantly out of Matthew 24 because it is the most detailed. You might wonder why John didn't cover it when he was there too. Well, he kind of did. He wrote the book of the Revelation. And the book of the Revelation was a whole book on prophecy. It covered the things that Jesus said, as well as Old Testament prophecies. So he did cover it too, but not in the concise form that these Matthew, Mark, and Luke do. We will be mostly, as I said, in Matthew chapter 24. Mount of Olives is on the hillside east of Jerusalem. Now, some believe that the Olivet Discourse was given only to the Jews. And there is an argument for that. But I question that. I don't agree with that, because not everyone in this group of disciples, not all of them were Jews, right? And the disciples came and asked him, and he was speaking to his disciples, asked him some questions, and then the discourse began. But before, let me go back. Before, okay, it's not only given to the Jews, and my argument for that is, even if you can tell me it was only to the Jews, well, we're adopted in. We Gentiles have been adopted in. Romans 11:17 says, and if some of the branches were broken off, and you, being a wild olive tree, were grafted in among them, and with them became a partaker of the root and fatness of the olive tree. And it goes on. Jews were referred to as the olive trees. Non-Jews, Gentiles, were referred to as wild olive trees. Well, we wild olive trees have been grafted in. A branch has to be broken or cut to graft in, and then we begin to partake of the same root system that the olive tree did. Well, which means, in translation, we as Gentiles are blessed beyond measure, that we have been grafted in or adopted in to the Davidic line, to being Abraham's seed, and we can partake of his blessings that were put on the seed of Abraham. So whether you believe it was just to the Jews or not, we're all included, because as adopted, we're adopted in as Jews, right? In a way of speaking. Okay. The setup for the Olivet Discourse is important. I like to go and get the context and get the background story when I'm teaching, when I'm studying. I like to know, okay, well, when did this happen? How did this come about? What led to this? And that's what we're going to do tonight before we get into the actual discourse. So Jesus is teaching in the temple. And the religious leaders of that day, they're so jealous of the following that Jesus has. They're so jealous of his popularity. They're so jealous that they begin to connive, and they're trying to trip him up. They come in and they're trying to cause him to trip on his own words, so to speak. They pose questions to him, and let's cover a couple of those. They're trying to ensnare him with his own words, but he is so wise. Jesus is just so wise. Let's start reading in Matthew 22. We're going to read from verse 15 on. Then the Pharisees went and plotted how they might entangle him in his talk. And they sent to him their disciples with the Herodians, saying, Teacher, we know that you are true and teach the way of God in truth. Nor do you care about anyone, in other words, showing favoritism. For you do not regard the person of men. Tell us, therefore, what do you think? Is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not? See, they're hoping to catch him. They're hoping to trick him, to get him to say something that they can have him arrested for. Jesus perceived their wickedness and said, Why do you test me, you hypocrites? Show me the tax money. So they brought him a denarius, and he said to them, Whose image and inscription is this? And they said to him, Caesar's. And he said to them, Render therefore to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. You see, they're going to flatter him. Oh, we know that you speak truth, and you're so wise, and you know the word. Y'all, this will happen to us as Christians. This will happen to us. Someone will come trying to test and say, oh, well, I know that you're a Christian and you read the Bible and you go to church. So what do you think about so-and-so? Be very careful how you answer. The word tells us to be wise as a serpent, but gentle as a dove. There are times that we're going to just have to say, kind of like Jesus did there. I mean, it's got Caesar's picture on it. It must be his. Give it to him. Don't let people ensnare you with your words. Okay, let's go on. When they heard these words, they marveled at him and they went their way. Well, he got them. He answered their question in a way that they, darn it, we can't get him with that. Well, then the Sadducees come. The Sadducees do not believe in the resurrection. They believe that when you die, you're just dead. Well, right behind that test from the Pharisees come the Sadducees. And it says, I should have used my bold print Bible, y'all, if this is small. The same day the Sadducees, who say there is no resurrection, came to him and asked him, saying, Teacher, Moses said that if a man dies having no children, his brother shall marry his wife and raise up offspring for his brother. Now there were with us 7 brothers. The first died after he had married and had no children, left his wife to his brother, and this happened again and again until all 7 were dead. And at last the woman died also. So in the resurrection, whose wife of the 7 will she be? For they all had her. See how they don't even believe in the resurrection, but they're trying to trick him up. Jesus answered and said to him, You're mistaken. In other words, says they're deceived in another version, not knowing the scriptures, nor the power of God. He's just calling them out. You don't know the word. You don't know God's power. For in the resurrection, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like the angels of God in heaven. Now, I want to stop here for 1 second. People have said, you hear it all the time, God needed another angel, and that's why so-and-so died. Okay, they take this scripture out of context. When you go into a deeper dive into that, you understand that what is actually being said there is not that we become angels when we die. We do not become angels when we die. Angels are angels. Humans are made in the image of God. Okay? When he says there will be like the angels, angels do not marry and they do not have children. That's what is being referred to there. And then he goes on to say, But concerning the resurrection of the dead, have you not read what was spoken to you by God, saying, I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob? God is not the God of the dead, but of the living. In other words, he's shooting down their theory, their theology that the resurrection does not happen, does not exist. He's saying, I am, present tense, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who had died from this earth and been resurrected into heaven. He's saying, God's not the God of the dead. He's the God of the living. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob live. There is a resurrection. So everything that they put to him, he just shoots it right down. He takes care of it. Later, the Pharisees ask him, what is the greatest commandment? Let's read that. Jesus said to him, You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and your soul and your mind. And this is the first and great commandment, and the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these 2 commandments hang all the law and the prophets. Well, they were just dumbfounded because he kept coming back with answers that they couldn't then snare him up on. Then Jesus turns the tables on them. I love this. He turns the tables on them. He says, let me ask you a question. And he asks them kind of a riddle. Who do you say the Christ is? And they say, whose son is he? And they say, the son of David. And he says, oh, but David calls him Lord. So how then is he his son? And they're dumbfounded. They don't know how to answer that. He basically put them in their place. He frustrated them completely to the point that they stopped asking questions. They were like, we can't get him. So then they just go point blank and plot to kill him. Now the disciples are there. They see all of this going on. They know that every word coming out of Jesus' mouth is being listened to and scrutinized so that they can try to catch him in something. They see what's happening. They're not foolish. They weren't foolish. They did some foolish things, but they knew what was going on. Immediately after tripping them up with his question, Jesus turns and speaks to the masses. Now, the Pharisees and Sadducees and religious leaders are still sitting there. Immediately, it says, he turns to the masses and begins to warn of the hypocrisy of the scribes and the Pharisees. I mean, he calls them out in front of everybody. He calls them whitewashed graves or tombs full of dead men's bones. He says that they scrub up and they look all righteous and pious on the outside, but inside is wickedness, dead and rotten. I mean, he doesn't hold back. He calls them snakes at one point, vipers, wicked and cruel and hypocritical. He calls them out. And then he looks over Jerusalem and he says, oh, how I would have embraced you. Oh, Jerusalem, how I would have embraced you. And he goes on to grieve. Mark and Luke also tell a story of the widow that goes and puts her little few mites into the offering. This is equal to maybe a dollar or two. And that's frowned upon by some. And Jesus says, let me tell you something. She gave out of her need. She gave more than these show-offs have given. Basically, I'm paraphrasing, of course. But he's basically saying, when you give, God doesn't need our money, y'all. God can do anything. He doesn't need our money. We need to give. We need to keep our hearts open to be blessed. Because you see, it's more blessed to give than to receive, because when you give, he multiplies it back. So this woman gave out of her desperation. And it really ticked off those arrogant show-offs that were going up with their big checks. And, they may not have had a checking account in those days, but going up and making sure everybody knew just how much they were putting in the offering. Brother so-and-so is putting in $5,000, I don't agree with that. The Bible tells us the right hand shouldn't even know what the left hand is doing. We're not to be doing that, because that's not giving for the right reason. Because she gave for the right reason, her offering meant more in the eyes of God than these big, pompous, huge amounts just to try to make these people look good. Well, now, these people are mad. These people that want him dead are mad. He has put a target. He's called them out for their hypocrisy. He's called them out for being show-offs. He's called them out for being whitewashed and evil on the inside and scheming. He's called them out and made a display of them in front of the masses. He's got a target on his back, y'all. So now we're going to step into the Olivet Discourse. I want to read you from Matthew 24, verse 1. Okay, so take into consideration all of that's just happened. Okay? He's got this target on his back, and what is he? Then Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and the disciples came to him to show him the buildings of the temple, and they are saying, oh, look how beautiful, how grand, how glorious is this beautiful temple. And out loud and on purpose, Jesus said, do you not see, let me get where I can see. Do you not see all these things? Assuredly, I say to you, not one stone shall be left upon another that shall not be thrown down. Well, the disciples are like, oy vey, here he goes again. That's a controversial. I'm not even going to ask him about it right now. I don't even want to know what he means because I don't, they know he's got a target on his back. So they're just going to lay low. They walked up to the Mount of Olives from Jerusalem, from the temple. I doubt they walked in silence. I doubt that they probably were talking. But the disciples waited until they were alone on the mountain, on the hillside, away from the Pharisees and the scribes and everybody. And then some of them go over to Jesus. Now, as he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, "Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?" Well, this is a pretty multifaceted set of questions. I mean, it'd be like a kid coming in and saying, "Mom, when did you say we're going to the zoo? What day is that? Where's my blue shirt? What's Dad's favorite ball team?" It was several questions all in one. They thought they were just asking one question, but Jesus perceived that they were asking a lot. He didn't even bother addressing the temple question. He didn't even waste time with that. Because you see, that prophecy would be fulfilled just 37 years later. Just 37 years later, in AD 70, the Romans had overthrown Jerusalem and they destroyed the temple. They burnt it. They burned it down with all of the gold. Many, many gold items. I mean, the temple was pretty beautifully arrayed. All of the golden treasures were inside it. And they melted. And as they melted, the gold ran down between the stones and the bricks. Later, people who were seeking that gold, people who were gold digging, turned over every stone, looking to see. Not one was left on another of those stones that were knocked down. Just as Jesus had said. So they get on the mountain. They ask the questions. Jesus doesn't even bother addressing that because it's like just you'll see. And then he goes right into the end time prophecies. Let's go on with verse 4, chapter 24, verse 4. And Jesus answered and said to them, "Take heed that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, saying I am the Christ, and will deceive many. And you'll hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines, pestilence, and earthquakes in various places. And all these things are the beginning of sorrows." That's through verse 8. A couple of things I want to point out in that. First of all, he says, even when you see all of this happening, don't be troubled. It's got to happen. He's saying it must be. Don't be troubled. Don't be worried about it. Y'all, I see people every time something happens that's unusual or that could be considered a sign of the times or anything, they just go into fear. That's their go-to. That is their default. They launch right into fear. How many times did Jesus say, "Be not troubled. Don't be dismayed"? You see, if we trust in Jesus and we put our faith in Jesus, we need to listen to his words. He says, "Don't be troubled. Just trust me. Just walk with me and trust me." There's a very funny reel that's out there, and I've sent it to several people. I love it. It's a lady walking along, and it says, "Me walking with Jesus and holding his hand," and she's just reached up and just walking. And then all of a sudden he starts going somewhere, and she's just flailing and yelling and crazy, but she's gripping and trying to hold on. Y'all, if we'll just hold that hand, we don't have to fear. We don't have to be dismayed. We need to walk in faith, even as we see the signs of the times coming. We'll go into more of the signs of the times next week. We'll go in deeper, but I want to say something. I'm in Louisiana, and all of my life I have never heard of an earthquake in Louisiana until a few months ago. And we've had 2 earthquakes here in northwest Louisiana in just the past few months. It was alarming to a lot of people. I slept right through them. I just do. I don't let stuff like that bug me. I don't let thunderstorms bug me. I pray for protection. I'm not saying I'm all that and a piece of cake. I'm just saying I know in whom I believed, and he's got me. Y'all, there comes a point where we have to just trust and just walk. Do you think that if he could prophesy that not a single stone would be left unturned, turned so that they could look for that gold? He knew the details. We covered that last week. Details are important. Do you not think that he can hold on to you? Do you not think that he can look at your circumstances and your situation and walk you through it? He can. But you've got to choose to walk in faith and trust him. So, we are going to go deeper into the Olivet Discourse next week. We will pick up where we left off here. I have enjoyed this study. I have been, of course, when I go into a study, I cannot even begin to bring to you guys. I'd be on here for hours if I was to bring to you everything that I just feed on when I'm doing this. I love it. I love it. I love to get in and study it out and study out word meanings and settings and all of those details. But I want to bring to you what the Lord lays on my heart to bring to you. So let's go ahead and continue to study out the Olivet Discourse, the last prophetic message, longest prophetic message that Jesus brought to the disciples before leaving this earth. Very important that we listen to it and that we take in what he wants us to get from it. Look at the setting of how it happened, when it happened, where it happened, and let's just learn. Let's just learn, okay? It's always good to learn. Faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God, right? That's what he says. Well, I love y'all, and we'll be back next week to pick up where we're leaving off with the Olivet Discourse. We'll go into week 3. Week 1 is already over on YouTube at Lace Up with Kelly Lace 5425. Share that with somebody. Subscribe if you go to it. Do all the stuff. Like and share this. Get it to people, and let's just get people learning the word, okay? Have no fear, brothers and sisters. God's got you. God's got you. Love you bunches. Hard for me to get off here. I just feel so connected to y'all when we're on here. Have a great rest of the week, and I will see you next Tuesday night. In the meantime, lace up. Keep on walking. Later.